Hey everybody, welcome. A few weeks back, I met a good friend of mine, virtuoso bass player Stuart Hamm. We first met at the Warwick Bass Camp 5, 6 years ago, and we did several clinic tours for Warwick, touring Germany, Austria, Switzerland. Not only the two of us, but also accompanying Chuck Rainey or Divinity Rocks. So we spend a good amount of time together in the van, in hotel lobbies, in music stores, in restaurants, talking this and that. And when I met him at the Guitar Summit, I asked him if he would be up for doing an interview. And we went to his hotel room, talking about gear, talking about traveling the world, talking about where is home, talking about racism in America and in Germany. And so a lot of different topics were discussed. And as usual, when I talked to Stuart, he gave me a lot of recommendations for books and movies. And as usual, I'll follow them. I'll go get me the books or go see the movies. And maybe you want to do too. So I hope you enjoy the talk. Thanks. See you next time. Bye. Hey Stuart, good to see you again.
Hey, what's
man.
up, Ove? What's happening, dude?
Long time no see.
When was a year, right?
Yeah, it's about a year.
Yeah.
Right. Basecamp reunion last year. Yoo-hoo!
Those good times.
How are you, man?
I'm good. Been busy, working away. I'm getting ready to go on tour with Tony McAlpine.
Yeehaw!
Yeah, we did this every Tuesday before NAMM shows, I've got this gig at the Baked Potato.
Baked Potato?
And I try to get a different band, and a hot girl in the band was key to getting people to show up. So last year we had Mohini Day and Tony McAlpine. This year I've got Tina Gao, who's the electric cellist player. She's going to be playing. So Tony and I played, and it was great, and it was one of those things. And Gergo Borlai, who's like my favorite drummer that's out there right now.
He played in your band for a while now, right?
We did a little tour with Dean
Alex?
Brown, and he did a couple gigs with me and Alex.
Yeah.
And he's just badass, man. He's got all these like Billy Cobham sort of chops, but also he can just lay it down. Hey, watch it. He can just lays it down the grooves. A lot of drummers with that many chops, don't know how to just like back up a solo, But he's just great. And so I just called Tony and I said, hey man, I'd love to play with you. And it turns out that his bass player, Pete Griffin, who did the new record, is going to be out with Vi on the Generation Axe tour. So they asked me to do this European tour, which is great. It's really, really challenging material, and he wants me to play a 5-string. And of course, I don't play 5-string. Last time I played 5-string was on Flying in a Blue Dream by Joe Satriani, and it went like this. That was the whole song.
Okay.
So,
Great.
so yeah, so I have to sort of up the level a little bit. So this is great. Marcus just, I'm just so lucky to have people like Marcus and HP in my life. When I said, hey man, I need a 5-string, when Tony said, and I had an old like Fender, but it's passive pickups, and it was kind of a beat up, and I would just happen to be coming over here, and Marcus threw this together, and it sounds great. So adding the challenge to learning this really hard material is trying to learn it on a 5-string.
Wow.
I know.
He's talking about Marcus Spangler from Warwick, of course.
I love Marcus. He's my guy.
Yeah, he's great.
He's my guy.
Absolutely. And this is kind of your bass just in a 5-string version?
Not
or
really,
what?
because my body is different, and obviously for them, if we're going to talk about the sheer economics of guitar building, for them to machine shop a 5-string version of my body is, is a whole thing. So and they also had to put one together. So I don't know how he just sort of, but Marcus knows what I like. I mean, he's just such a genius, and he knows that the thin kind of neck I want, and he from the available parts, and he we got in touch with Tommy Armstrong from EMG, and they FedExed over the parts. So I'm just sometimes I pinch myself at how so many things that happened that I could have dreamed of when I was like a 19-year-old bass player. Like I'm good friends with Rob Turner, the head of EMG, and I can just call him up and say, FedEx pickups to Germany. Well, this Marcus builds me a brand new 5-string just for me in a week, and then it's ridiculous when you think about it,
Cool.
And I've been with GHS Strings longer than the current president, when Russ McPhee, when his dad was president, right? So I went over to Michigan and went to a football game with him and did a tour of the GHS factory. And it was amazing because it's like a little mom and pop organization. I mean, it's about a tenth of the size of Warwick, and it's literally this little industrial shop, little, kind of dingy looking little building with a
Really?
sign that has like 20 people working, and there's no machine that winds strings and puts them in the little envelope. Every string, guitar and bass, some lady has to wind those
Wow.
and put them in there. And I met Peggy, and there's these people, these Midwestern people, and they take a string and they put it on this big thing, and if it's an E string, they put 2 more layers of strings on it, and then someone else puts the little the felt coating on the tip, and then someone winds it up and puts it in a bag and right to me. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I saw the same thing at Rotosound in England.
Really?
Same thing. Small company, just a few people
Yeah.
doing all this.
Hands, I mean,
unbelievable.
yeah, the people, I don't think, I never realized that just how much personal, they're all handmade. There's no machine.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
they can even wind them on the machine and then coil them and put them into the packaging.
Do you have an idea how D'Addario or Gore or companies like this do
I
it?
have no idea. But I would imagine that if one company had a machine that can wind strings and put them in a package, that they all would. But I don't know. D'Addario is I believe a larger company size-wise than GHS.
Yeah.
GHS is like a family-run company, small thing, but it was great to meet the people and just see how they're all made. And I love my boomers.
You still play the bass boomers, right? Same thing ever.
Same thing. I mean, people send me other strings to check out, and I play them, and they seem, they can do different things. But I think I just know how to get boomers to work. I know how to get them to do what I want. Like today, I had a brand new set on, and I enjoyed playing because I know when they're fresh, and I can get certain kind of sustain out of them. And it's just how familiar I am with them. Not better or worse, but just how used I am. to
Yeah.
them.
You have problems sometimes with bad strings in a new set or something?
Not rare. No, I have to say not really. I mean, back in the day when I used to play Rotosounds, and I think they were shipped over. I love this. Some of those Rotosounds would just smell just like copper. So, but then you would also get sets that were somewhat rusted. Because they were shipped over. But no, I found the GHS stuff is they have the new vacuum packing, and I know it sounds like a Russ McPhee ad for GHS strings, but no, I'd have to say that I really haven't had. And they're making tape wounds, flat wound tape wounds, the strings again, which is great. So,
Right. Cool. So one other thing changed gear-wise for you. You have been with Hartke
Yeah.
for years,
Yeah.
and now you changed to Mark bass. How
Yeah.
come?
the sound that I got from Hartke was they used to make the LH, not the LH, I guess it was called the HA 3500, 2500, 5000. That was a solid state and a tube side. And the solid state side was a circuitry invented by Mr. Yu, who was a Korean engineer who now lives in China that I got to know. And that was essentially my sound. Because even when I used the heads that had solid state and the tube side on, I would generally always use the solid state side. Sometimes I would use the tube if I'm recording or if I'm playing fretless, But really my sound was that tube side, and they discontinued the model. And they sent me some of the new stuff that they had, and I just really couldn't get my sound. They sent me like 3 or 4 of the LH5 or HA 5000s they had in stock. And then, had the opportunity again. It's like Warwick, Mark Bass. Those guys were always talking to me, and I know so many people that know Ricardo and know Marco. And I actually had been on vacation for 3 weeks a few years ago when I was writing that record, The Diary of Patrick Xavier. I ended up staying for 3 weeks in Pescara, which is where Mark Bass was. Nothing to do with them.
Okay.
I just they happened to be there, and I talked to Marco when I was there, and he came down and he showed me the factory, and we sort of said, let's keep in touch. And then when I found out Hartke wasn't making the amp that got my sound, I said, well, let's see if what they can do. So I met Cecino is the guy at Mark Bass that is the engineer, and he's sort of like the Marcus Spangler of electronics. And again, we sit there and we talk for hours about wires and coils, and we came up with a really, I think, interesting idea, which is that, a lot of people that play Mark Bass are sort of that post-Jocko, mid-rangey jazz rock kind of players that have a sound like Jeff Berlin or Hadrian Furrow or, you know what I'm talking about, sort of, no offense, not nasally, but, it's sort of that thing, right? So I had an idea, let's make something for Mark Bass that's a little more rock, and one of the things was aesthetically looking, because, Rudy Sarzo or Billy Sheehan ain't gonna play, 2 8x10 cabinets with this tiny little head on it. You got to have a cool looking big head with big knobs and bright lights and all that stuff, right? So, that was part of it. This got a little cool. And we came up with something that was really simple and really different and had a nice sound. And then when I was there, they said, hey man, since you're doing this signature head, I want you to check out a cabinet. It's this 215. And I was like, dude, I've been playing 4x10s for my whole life. I need the distinction. And I played it, and whatever they did to it, the cabinets are getting lighter and lighter, like what Aguilar's doing, great. And it's a nice size cabinet. It's a little smaller than like, the regular 8x10, but it's got a really, really good clarity, I guess because of the horn, but the low end of it is just really true, and I sort of A and B it back to my old Hartke XLs that I still love, and the low end is a little different, But, you saw it today, like when I'm playing solo bass, there's no effects or anything. It's just a really expensive chord and fresh strings into an amp. And when I change any part of that, it usually generally makes it hard for me, But I've really found that with the new Mark Bass stuff, it adds some nice low end to it that I didn't have before.
So, cabinet and amp is your signature thing?
Yeah.
Very good. Are you also into like technical details of an amp? Because you said wires and coils and stuff.
No, I can't speak that language. I can say what I want, and then the guys will talk about capacitors, and I don't talk about humbuckers and people that get caught up in gear and stuff. But I'm like a wirehead, and it's so funny because I work with this company called Wire World Audio, right? They make these really high end cables. They sent me a cable that was like $1,700 pure copper cable.
Wow.
And I don't know. I had to send it back because I think I have a pretty good ear. I'm not Eric Johnson, but I'm kind of getting there. And when I plugged it in, it seemed really clear, but it seemed like there was a little bit of low end missing, right? So then the discussion becomes, how much of it do you really hear and how much is a placebo? Because some people believe that wires go one direction. Right, and you get these wire world cables, and they have an arrow. Say this end goes to your, and I know other people that says that's absolute bullshit. There's no physical proof that can happen, right? So you can have that discussion forever. So I was talking with Cecino, and I'm like, no man, this cable's my favorite cable. It's got more end. And he said, all right, let's do a blindfold test, and I refused to do it. Because if I was wrong, I'd have nothing to believe in.
That's right.
If I'm so sure that this cable has more low end, and then they blindfold me, and it turns out that I can't really hear the difference, then I'll have nothing to believe in. So, I don't. At that point, I don't want to know. I'll let it be a placebo. If I think it makes a difference, and it makes me play better, and that's all.
That's fine. Yeah,
that's
sure.
all it matters, So it's fun, but it's spirited discussion. And again, this guy Cecino, he is into the electronics as like Marcus is to building basses. And then that's my happy space in the world is basses and stuff. And I love talking about it. I love being around people that are as passionate about it as I am, like you.
Oh, thank you. So talking about effects, I remember when we were doing our first clinic tour for Warwick together, you used that Zoom something effect. You haven't done it today.
No, I didn't use it today just because I couldn't fit it in my suitcase.
Oh, okay.
But I've been working, very much with Zoom. Zoom was part of Samson, and then Scott Goodman, who was the CEO of Samson, left, and then a year later started Zoom North America. and work with Masa, and they've simplified this stuff. I mean, you know, effects are fun. I still have not found any pedal that makes my bass sound better than plugging it directly into the bass, right? Having said that, you know, I always want to try something different, and as you well know, on my last record it was very different, where I sort of I wanted to change things differently, and some of the songs I specifically wrote sort of around the effects, which is very different for me. But man, I hope to continue to grow and try something else. And so as you mentioned, I didn't play anything new today. As you pointed out, thank you very much. It's just because
it was just between us.
I guess I could have, but a couple of the songs really rely on the use of the effects to make the songs work, at least in my mind, and that's all that matters, because it's just my world we all
exactly
live in,
and it's your show,
you know. So, but the Zoom stuff is really nice. You know, it's able to. I've worked with their stuff enough where they used to have these really big cable units, pretty small unit. I know how to program it, you know. I know how to, you know, even if I bypass all the effects and plug it in, it doesn't alter the sound that much, you know. And I've got my own presets, and again, I know how to program my sounds into it. So that sounds good. I mean, I have at one point I have a whole analog pedal board, and I got all these pedals, but I guess it sounds better. But there's so many different working parts. I mean, with the guitar players, you know, if one battery or one wire's out, how many times have you seen the guitar player spend hours at sound check trying to chase down where his pedal boy doesn't work? So, you know, honestly, if I plug into through even the Zoom pedal, you know, it takes away a little bit of the low mids, and again, maybe it's all in my brain, but at that point, for a live performance, it's just the convenience of being able to sound. If I'm losing a little bit of sound quality, who's going to know? Because here's the thing, in general, you know, I'll never know what it sounds like in the audience, because if someone's sitting in the audience, they're hearing my amp through a microphone, through a PA, at how the sound man wants to EQ it. So who knows what relationship that has to the sound I hear coming out of my amp.
That's right.
And that's all I can control.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what Anthony Jackson said. He's just in control for everything before getting the sound to the front of house.
Then you'll never know. I don't want to know, you know.
Right.
I don't want to know. So, yeah.
So, talking about music and talking about you traveling the world with your music, you've been to Hawaii lately, right?
I did go to Hawaii.
What was that?
How am I going to put a spin on this? A good friend of mine, Joshua Kay, used to live in San Francisco, and we used to have this great gig. You know, when I do go into California and talk about Muir Beach Overlook, it's on the way to a little town called Stinson Beach, which is right by Bolinas, which is this little hippie town north of the Golden Gate Bridge, where people hide the signs so you can't find it unless you know where you're going. Great little beach town, wonderful gig. I'd had so many wonderful times there with my band, playing duets with him, and he moved to Hawaii, and so I went over there a couple of years ago, and it was great. For some reason I had about 6 weeks off, where I had nothing going on, and it was sort of the end of July, early August, and it was about 120 degrees in LA, and Josh and I have a bunch of friends. I got invited to do a bass bash over there a couple of years ago. So I met this whole community of Hawaiian bass players, and this beautiful woman named Lynn Crawley, who has a wonderful house in Kailua with a little room and back by the pool she lets me stay at. So I said, well, do I want to spend the last 2 weeks in July sitting around LA sweating, or I could go to Hawaii? And, you know, Josh let me borrow a car, and I'd drive up to the North Shore and sit on the beach all day and then do jazz gigs at night.
Sounds like an easy one.
It wasn't a bad decision. It was great. So yeah, it was interesting. There's some very different music and different scene. Yeah, it was nice.
The other thing I learned, you've been to La Réunion lately in the Pacific.
Yeah.
What was that?
That was insane, dude.
I believe
that was one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, and I met some really amazing people. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it was a great band. It was Guthrie Govan, and that's where I met this girl, Tina Gao, who it was called La Nuit de Virtuosos, and this guy Antonio Serrano, who was a Spanish harmonica player. And Tina Gao plays electric violin. She does like game show music, but she also plays with who's the Hans Zimmer Orchestra, you know, and she does.
Guthrie Govan is in
Yeah. And she's like, you know, what are you doing this week, Tina? Oh, you know, I'm doing the lead soundtrack for Avatar, you know, the new James Cameron movie, and she's super cute, you know, and practices with a short skirt and high heels, and you know, gets 10 million hits whenever she posts an Instagram video, and wonderful player and really nice. And it was a really strange and cool, eclectic mix. And it was put together. This friend of mine, Loic Lempereur, runs a music school. I know, called DESFM2, EFM2. He's got a school in Marseille and one in Tourcoing, which is by Lille in France. And he should have put this French band together that I play with there. Eric Lebailly on drums. And man, really interesting island, because there was no indigenous culture there. Right, so it wasn't like the French showed up and killed all the dark-skinned people, right? So there's none of that sort of tension, you know.
Okay.
So it's not as I've heard. You know, I've been to like the Caribbean, and you know, it's not as you know, funky as like some African shit. But there are, you know, people from Africa and there's people from France, and they mix, and there's their own sort of culture and music, which is sort of a Caribbean thing, but none of that angst of sort of, you know, colonialism vibe, you know, and totally French, because it's a beautiful island, except you can't go swimming or surfing. It's illegal.
Why is that?
Because of global warming. It's the largest population of bull sharks in the world in the last 20 years, and more people have been attacked. But can you imagine owning an island? And it's a great island. You just can't go swimming in the ocean or go surfing. But it was great, man. I mean, like I said, of all the places, I'm glad you reminded me of that. I met some wonderful people, and really, really interesting culture, and just, man, clean and beautiful, and you know, in the middle of nowhere, dude. I mean, it was a long flight to get there.
You flew from Paris?
What did I fly? I flew L.A. Did I fly L.A.? Probably L.A. to Paris, and then sort of overnight Paris to Réunion. And I think the flight was delayed for one day, so we had to spend the night in a hotel at the airport, and then of course that took away the one day we were supposed to have off, so we sort of got there and were jet lagged and played. But it was great, man. I got this great clip. One of the things they did was they had us play for a bunch of school kids, and I haven't played for a bunch of like 14-year-old girls in a long time. I got a clip where they're all screaming, ah! Felt like a rock star. It was so much fun. It was so ridiculous, you know? And it's just great. You go there and people treat you well. And I met these local musicians, and they've sort of got their own rhythm, which is this weird 6/8 thing, but they put the beat on 2 and 5 that I couldn't get the groove because I'm just too white. But it was really fun, man. I mean, I'm glad you reminded me of that. That was just fantastic.
Wasn't that Réunion? Wasn't that the prison island, the French prison island?
No, that's French Guiana. That's off the coast of Colombia.
Okay.
That's where Papillon happened.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I heard the new version of Papillon is very horrible.
Haven't seen it yet.
I heard it's bad. So, but I saw a great movie I'd recommend called Juliet Naked. It's not what you think. It's based on the Nick Hornby. You know who Nick Hornby is?
Sure.
You know, he wrote High Fidelity and A Long Way Down. Great movie. Ethan Hawke and Chris O'Dowd and Rose Byrne. Sort of an adult sort of love story. Very grown-up movie. Really funny. About an aging rocker and his multiple wives and kids. It was really good. I highly recommend it if you get a chance to see it. Really, you know, I see a lot of movies.
You should take care of Stuart's recommendations, because I read books and saw movies he recommended, and they all were awesome. Last thing I read, Terror. That
The Terror. Yeah.
The book you
Did
recommended.
you see the TV show?
No.
It was pretty good. There's some great acting in it. The CGI effects are a little weird, but that was interesting because that led me to read all the stories about the actual Franklin expedition, and you know what those people went through. It's crazy. Of course, now global warming. Now the Northwest Passage is there.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
But you talk about these people. You talk about. Yeah, I know how into nautical fiction you are. You know, and there's other stories of people that got caught. There's one dude that got caught in the same place and like went all the way to like Siberia and then came back, and they're lifting canoes over ice floes the size of. Can you imagine the hardship?
Wow.
That's insane.
The Terror is a story about the Franklin expedition to discover the Northwest Passage.
Yeah, very good.
Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
So above Canada.
To open the trade route to India.
That's right, yeah. And
China.
they had two ships. One was the
Terror, and the other was the Erebus.
Exactly. The Erebus was the first. I think that was the flagship.
Yeah.
And the Terror was the other one. Of course, that makes a better title for a TV show.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, okay, Dan Simmons is a great horror writer, and boy, I don't know. Boy, talk about a weird tangent. But he wrote some great books, and now I'd have to say that unlike me, I got to say that I've written maybe 4 songs, right? And every song I write is sort of a different version of the same 4 templates. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it seems to me, I've read a lot of his books, that now he sort of has a method, right? His last book was about Sherlock Holmes, and then the Northern was about Thomas More. So he researches something and writes sort of historical fiction and then adds a horror element into it. So
Same thing every time.
I mean, hey man,
Yeah, sure.
You know what I'm saying? It's hard to keep coming up with new stuff.
That's right. But it's a great read, people.
It is a good book, and the TV show was really good acting. It was produced by Ridley Scott, and it was really good. Yeah,
okay.
and they changed some things from
Is
the
it
book.
HBO?
No, it was I think AMC, but I'm sure you can get it on Netflix or whatever.
Sure.
Or, I'll leave. It was good. CGI was a little weird, but acting was great, and you'd love it. I mean, the nautical stuff was just great.
Gotta see it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, you played Going to California.
Yeah.
Again. You play
A
that
million
often
times.
at your shows,
do,
right?
I know.
And you're talking about being homesick when you play that. And whenever you talk about that, I remember from our tours we did, you talk about a place near San Francisco.
Right.
But you're living in LA.
Right.
But you moved to LA from San Francisco. Is that still what you call home? Is that still where you're at home?
I have no answer for that. I have no answer for that question. I live in California. I don't know where I live. All I can say is that this is kind of personal. We could edit this out, but I've driven you take the Route 5 from LA to San Francisco is 380 miles, exactly. I know every inch of that. I've done it more times than you could even believe. And when I die, it will be on the I-5. I guarantee. Guarantee it'll be in a fiery car wreck, falling asleep at the wheel on I-5, probably on the Grapevine. But about exactly within about 1.5 tenths of a mile, there's a stop called Coalinga, halfway in between. And generally I'll pull over there to get gas or just stretch my legs. And I can't tell you how many times I get back on the highway and it says 5 north or south, and I'm going, which way am I going? I can't remember from going up to San Francisco or going down to LA. So I don't know, what can I say? I'm currently in exile in LA with all the lost souls in the city of Los Angeles. How's that? If you want to get really depressed, listen to the song Desperados Under the Eaves by Warren Zevon. That's the best LA song ever written.
Desperados Under the Eaves.
Desperados Under the Eaves, yeah, great song. Great song.
But it's old, right?
It is
Warren
old.
Zevon is it 80s or something?
He died, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty bad production, but the lyrics and it really catches the mood of the desperation of Los Angeles. Have you ever read Day of the Locust?
No.
Oh man, by Nathaniel West.
Another recommendation.
That is the ultimate L.A. Is the worst place in the world. In fact, it's about an apartment building and people trying to make it a writer coming from the Midwest. And in fact, the character who is the good-looking, corn-fed, all-American football player who moves to LA to become an actor and of course gets eaten alive by the locusts, his name is Homer Simpson. So that's where Homer Simpson came from. And the book's a little depressing.
Okay.
But it was written in the 40s, and it literally could have been written about the Kardashians yesterday. It really is. It's an incredible, it's a short novel. It's great, great book. Day of the Locust. Now I'm depressed. Not really. Really.
I always take notes. While talking to Stuart, I always take notes and then follow his recommendations. It's great.
LA's a funny place. I mean, there are people, I mean, part of me lives in LA because I still think that, like, you know, David Foster's going to call me and say, Stu, we need you in the studio right now.
Yeah.
And if I'm not there in 5 minutes, I'll call someone else. At this point, I doubt that'll actually happen. But the reality is San Francisco has changed so much since when I lived there, with all the yuppies. And then now, with all the fires up there, there's just no place to live.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, the fires that have been happening in Northern California are literally insane. And there's no place for people to live. So I'm up there a lot. Obviously, it's where my friends and where my heart is and where my daughter is currently. But I don't know. Wow, what a bummer. Some good things. The great movie theaters. I got some good restaurants. I got some my little haunts that I like to do in LA. I like LA, and what I like about LA is it really is, in some ways, the future. Oh, there's a book for you.
Oh,
Cadillac Desert. Have you read
I
this?
heard about that one, yeah.
That's about Mulholland and how LA was created, which was this incredible. These guys with money that, like Chandler, that owned the LA Times, they stole money from the water from the Owens Valley and got government grants to reroute it. And the book is really about how the American West, which is a huge desert, was populated and irrigated. And what they told people was, people who were living in Boston, they said, Manhattan, Kansas is just as fertile as Boston. It's green. And the thing is there's only an inch of rain a year here, but the more people that move here, there'll be more rain. So if we get 1 million people here, we'll get 100 inches of rain a year.
I see.
And so people believed it.
Wow.
And it's about just the damming of the rivers and the power of who got what, how Salt Lake City was created, who's stealing water from the Colorado River to go to it's unbelievable. And the way that the San Fernando Valley was just bought, and when they finally got the water from the Owens Ranch, they said, well, we'll divert it through the San Fernando Valley, and it became fertile ground, except that it was all owned by Chandler and Mulholland, and they sold off parcels, and the government was involved. It's unbelievable. This the graft and just theft. And a lot of people got rich in the old-fashioned way.
That's right. That's right.
Anyway, it's a very interesting read. There you go.
So you talked about going on tour with Tony McAlpine.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you cannot make it to GitCon.
I can't
because of that tour.
Yeah.
And Divi Rocks will be there.
Oh wow.
And we could meet again. The three of us could meet again. Remember that tour we did?
Man, that was so great. Yeah.
One day in Berlin.
Oh, I remember that day in Berlin.
Oh yeah.
Great. That rain. Remember the rain coming down outside?
No,
was at the time with Chuck. We were sitting outside at the Italian
That was
restaurant.
with Chuck. That was in Cologne.
Right.
With Chuck, yeah, where they thought he's...
Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman.
No.
At the Denzel Washington?
Yeah, Denzel. That was by the...
that was at the Indian place.
And there was the Georgian restaurant that had the cucumber and tomato salad.
That was in Berlin, I guess.
That was in Berlin?
Yeah, that's
by
right.
Charlottenburg.
Yeah, right. That's where we stayed.
Yeah, Divi. So Divi came down to one of my gigs at the Big Potato, and I went out to dinner with her and Yanni for her birthday when they were in LA. She's always calls me up, and great, what a great talent. Yeah, I'd love to be there. I had but I'll be in Bochum Thursday, and then Saturday someplace in Switzerland. So I guess it's really opposite direction, though. As we all know, I did email HP and say, I got a night off if you want to get me over. I'd love to come for the day, but I think it's a little too far.
It's a long ride. Bochum to Magna-Kirchen, it's about, I think, maybe 5 hours or something.
That's like going to the airport from where I live, so don't talk to me about
Bullshit.
No, I wish I could be there. I do. I really miss that part, man. I miss Saxony, and I mean, I don't know what's going on in Chemnitz. I don't know, how much of that is just media nonsense or how serious it is. Or
obviously nobody knows, because you hear different stories from political side, and then you hear different stories from the media side,
Right.
and so I don't know what happened there.
I don't know.
I have no idea. I don't know anyone who actually has been there.
Right. Well, I don't know. You know, we can edit this out too, but you know, it's a tough thing. I mean, I understand why Merkel would accept all those people, but also, I mean, I can also, not that you're, you know, the Nazi salute or whatever, or racism or xenophobia is one thing, but then again, you can't have, especially in the East, where people are pretty provincial. And you know, you and I have been on these clinic tours where we go down to breakfast. People look at me funny.
Right.
Because these people that have set in their ways to live, and if you bring in, you know, 1.5 million people of a different religion and a different culture, I mean, you can't expect people not to get upset or be concerned, right?
Right.
I mean, not that they have to, you know, lynch and stuff like that, but to think that everything is just going to be, oh, that's fine, you know, I mean. The issue is a little stronger than that.
It's a hard situation. It is more than that, absolutely. It's a hard situation because they thought everything would be fine while bringing these people in, but they had no idea how to set up like German laws, which are very restrictive and everything. I work with a family from Sri Lanka.
Right.
They're actual refugees, and I have so much trouble working with them, just translating the stuff from the authorities, because they have no idea accepting any form they do or translating for the people to English or to whatever they have. It's ridiculous. It's so high. The hurdles they have to overcome to get accepted in Germany, not only by the people or by the society, but also by the authorities. It's incredible.
Well, no, I mean, you get to give, you know, Germany so much credit for when no one else in the world would, you know, obviously there are some economic refugees, but for these people to just, you know, have nothing to give up their lives to live someplace else. But I don't see, it seems to me in America, within one generation, people assimilate. You know, and you see people come over from Syria, and then their kids have got baseball caps on, or LeBron James fans, and they're assimilating. I don't know how quickly, you know, Muslim Syrians are going to assimilate into, you know, German culture. I don't know. We'll see. This out. We'll see. I mean, what happens in 16 years when all these kids go to school and they start singing "O Tannenbaum" and they go, wait a minute, you know, that's not my religion, that's not my background, why should I have to sing it? And that's sort of what makes Germany German, right?
Yeah, right. And America, of course, is much more like a melting pot and bringing different cultures
together. Which is what I like about LA. It doesn't really work, but it's an attempt. I mean, LA is a real friggin' melting pot. You know, it really is. Right. It really is.
And we're struggling with that. We're struggling with officially have to be like a melting pot for all these guys from Africa and the Near East and everything.
We're not racist, by the way. We're just talking.
No. It has nothing to do with being racist, but it's hard because there is no regulations how to work with the people and how to including them in the society. There's nothing done by the government, and they still don't do nothing, and that's a huge problem.
Right.
Of course it has nothing to do with being racist or something, because like I said, we work with a family from Sri Lanka, and it's great people, and I love to work with them. It's really amazing, but they still have a lot to go through with their history they had back where they came from, and now not being accepted by the authorities in Germany for what they've been through. It's ridiculous.
Well, I don't know. It's strange. And then you look at, I mean, you look at a country like Australia that has a freaking net. Well, they won't let anyone in the country.
Yeah.
And then it's like, where do you draw the line? I mean, it's like just because they killed all the indigenous people 70 years ago, they think that they're the only ones that have a right to that land, right? I mean, where do you draw the line, right? You know what I'm saying?
That's the problem all over the world right now, I think, right?
Which is against *Sapiens*. That's the book you read. That's the but again, I mean, it's you know, it's a wonderful thing they did, you know, to take in the people, you know, obviously with you know, the current president of the United States of America. It's just, you know, it's just so insane, you know, it's just.
You know when we've been on tour with Chuck?
Yeah, I know.
And
I remember.
We were talking about Trump
I know.
being president,
I know.
and both of you were saying, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Don't get me started. But wait a minute. But hang on. Well, just let me. All I'll say in passing is. There you go. Just in case there's any miscommunication, I just want everyone to know that. That's to make myself perfectly clear here.
That's great.
You know. So.
Last week we had the Reveland Festival again at Warwick.
I heard it was 600 people. Well, you're going to edit out the bad stuff out of this,
No.
right? No,
I don't do. So, but what happened was I felt like I had to, because I've been in Saxony, I'm not living there, so I felt like I have to say something
Right.
about
Well, what happened to all
racism and
those?
everything.
I mean, even though the language was basis against racists.
Yeah, exactly.
It should have been basis against racism, but anyway, we'll talk
right.
semantics.
So I brought that up again because we had this thing again like 3-4 years ago maybe called Bassists Against Racists.
Yeah.
They printed shirts. They also did Guitarists Against Racists.
Yeah.
They sold
That's
the
great.
shirts at the base camp, at the Reveland Festival, all that kind of stuff, and gave the money to a society called Pro Asyl, which works with refugees and everything. And I brought that up again now at the Reveland last week.
Right.
And I wore that shirt and I said, okay, we still have this going on here. We have still shirts left and you can buy them. And it's just, we're an international festival. We have lots of bands from different countries. We're an international company. Lots of different companies, nationalities are working here.
Right.
So we're against racism. We're against hating refugees or hating foreigners and all that stuff. I said nothing political.
Right.
That was it. And
Right.
I went off the stage and one guy came up and said, the festival is great. Music is wonderful, but please leave politics aside. And I said, I didn't say anything political. Not against right, not against left, no nothing. But what I said, being against racism, only has to do with being human and has to do with ethics and being a moral person.
Well, yeah, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would seem to me that the people that are attracted to the sort of music that you're putting on at Reveland are the same sort of people that belong to right-wing soccer supporter parts and have maybe are more leaning towards a xenophobic, racist attitude than someone who's listening to jazz rock or smooth jazz. Correct? Possibly.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Well, then I stand corrected.
No, I don't think you can tell that just from the music, from the genre of music you're in.
Right.
I think you have conservative people in metal, also as you have conservative people in jazz, or in blues, or wherever it is, pop music or
Really?
whatever.
Oh, okay.
I think
You
so.
learn something new every day.
See?
See? I do miss it though. I loved over in that part of Germany. It just, especially when it's Spargelwelt or Pfefferlinger season.
Pfifferlinge, which is the mushrooms. And they do a great mushroom soup called the Schwammischbalken.
Ah, it's easy for you to say, of course.
That's a horrible soup. It's just mushrooms cooked with mushrooms,
Oh, yeah.
and then they added some mushrooms,
All right.
and that's almost it. Pepper and salt, of course.
So here I'll tell you two of my favorite German stories. Remember we went back to the Golden Anchor.
Oh yeah,
Because it was, sometimes those mass dinners at camp get a little much, and so and they have good food there.
Absolutely.
They've got schnitzel the size of your head,
Yeehaw.
bigger than your head. But so what's the wonderful, beautiful young blonde girl that works there has family like in Missouri or whatever. So I'd stayed there like 3 years before, and I have sort of a ritual, which is that if I've got clothes, T-shirts or short or something that are still clean, but I'm sort of done with them, I'll leave them in a hotel. Because generally the people in America that are cleaning hotels, they see a nice clean T-shirt, they can probably use it. right? So it's sort of like passing it along. Right?
Yeah.
So it's also just sort of a way of throwing away old clothes. So I got there, I had dinner there, and this lady goes, "Wait a minute, I have something for you." And she brought out a bag of clothes I'd left there like 3 years ago. So, and the same thing happened. I did a week-long camp in Schorndorf, where I had all these different bass players, and it was great. And at the end of the day, it must have been 8 or 9 people said, here's my CD of my band. And I'll be honest, my lawyer, I'll say my lawyer says don't listen to him, because if you listen to him, or you get sued if people think you rip it off.
Yeah,
Anyway,
your lawyer, yeah.
anyway, or I listened to all of them and downloaded them all on my YouTube, and so I threw them away, put them in the garbage can. And then I also left my iPad charger there. So I call him up and I get home and I said, "Hey, listen, I left my iPad charger. Can I give you my FedEx account and can you ship it back to me?" And I get this huge box. And the lady said, "Oh, you left like a dozen CDs here." So I paid for it and just shipped all the way back to LA, where I had to throw them away again. It cost me like $40. That's German thoroughness right there for you.
That's
man.
right.
Holy crap. Holy crap.
You don't do that here.
No, man, no, you don't. You don't.
And so you're playing a concert tonight with Uli John Roth and Phil X and whoever will be there. So I'll leave you alone now.
Yeah, I know that Matthias Englund will be there. It's gonna be
Exactly,
great.
yeah,
We played a song called "Father" that we played years ago at a Jason Becker benefit. And Phil, obviously, I know. We've played a lot. This is one of the jams in LA. It's a place called Lucky Strike. So we've played a number of times there. And a local guy named Tobias. And, I'm not sure exactly what we're going to play, but I do
Little
know
Wing is on the list, of course.
I'm going to show up. I'm going to have a bass, so I'm pretty sure things are going to be all right.
That's right.
It'll be super fun.
Okay. Stuart, thanks a lot.
All right, brother.
See you next time.
Ciao.